letters, they are poetry and all. They are love and understanding, and they're better than they all. There are canyons, they are yawning in the night. They are rank and bitter anger, they are all devoid of light. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and soul foreboding, and they're oh so very wide. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and slow foreboding, and they're oh so very wide. Let us build a bridge of music, let us cross through the song. Let us span another canyon, let us write another wrong. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're off and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're off and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. We will tell them building bridges.
We will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. Thank you, Bill Staines. Welcome to Bridges Programming. This is Sunday on the Front Stoop, the longest stoop in the world. That's brought to you by Bridges Programming, by the HREM, Human Renewable Energy Measure, and Renew the Earth. That's renewtheearth.org. So bridgesprogramming.com, renewtheearth.org. And we have with us today Susan Comont.
Hello.
And I'm Jeff Beller. And on the phone line is Dennis Carius. Hello, Dennis. How are you?
Hey, good, Jeff. How are you and Susan?
We are busting our chops here and nobody cares.
Oh, but I care. I care so much. It's unbelievable.
Most people are working much too hard to care. And that's the problem.
Wow.
They're working too hard. And that's what our program is going to be about today. We're going to be talking about the world economy and what's going on with it. And as again, we're going to be quoting a lot of Bucky Fuller, Buckminster Fuller, or Bucky as he'd like to be called. And unfortunately, he died a few years back. But his writings are great. And about 30 years ago.
30 years. But he saw what we're living today. He saw it coming then, the way that the economics has evolved.
Yeah, and what he also thought about was he had a lot of hope.
Yes, he did.
He had a lot of hope.
And we have hope too.
Yeah,
we have a lot of hope.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing the program.
Right. We're not just bringing you the bad news. We're trying to show a road to another direction.
We feel as though we have an answer, and the answer is so simple. It sort of repels the mind, and it's like gravity. You know, everybody knew gravity was around, and then someone said, "Well, what do you got to name it for?" Well, so we got to name this stuff. It's obvious. An apple fell on his head. He said, "We're going to call it gravity," and then he doesn't quite understand it, but he was able to measure it, and that's what's happening with the HREM, the Human Renewable Energy Measure. We know it's obvious that everybody needs their education, food, and shelter without going into slavery for the things they need. And if they want to work more, they have the opportunity to work as much as they choose to work. Right now, we're building a boat, and we're going to be giving it to
Renew the Earth. The not-for-profit.
It's a non-profit
part of what we're doing.
We're going to donate that boat to Renew the Earth. And it's going to have bird tours here around Florida, free bird tours. Anybody who wants to come aboard, we'll take them around to watch the birds, and they can be on a solar boat. It's a total solar boat.
It's a way to give people the experience of being propelled on a boat completely by the sun.
Right.
There's no fuel supported engine. It's an electric motor run
Well,
from the sun, feeding batteries and going right into the motor.
and we're going to put hydroponics on it so you can pick some fruit while you're on the boat.
Well, that
Hopefully, if we get
maybe plastic.
No. We can do
I don't know if we
hydroponics.
can grow anything on
And
the
then,
boat.
and then we would like to,
Maybe
and
herbs.
we may use a ethanol cook stove for cooking coffee or whatever. And we may even use a biodiesel genset or ethanol
So
genset.
these are all various
Renewable energies.
sustainable practices and energies that have a less damaging, as far as we know at this point, impact on our natural resources.
So that's where we are. Dennis, are you excited about that new boat?
We got to take you for a ride on it.
I think it's great. Well, that's wonderful.
Mhm.
What a boat. We have a car that's the Prius is a hybrid. But that
Yes.
boat, that's even better. That's just strictly on solar, right?
Yes. It's the sun to the batteries to the motor. And we'll, once we get it going, we're going to do a program from it, and you can ride on it, virtually, Dennis.
Yeah, we're actually going to do, because it's such a quiet boat, we'll be able to run around. And anybody on the boat, we're going to interview them and put them right on the program like we're doing now. So that's the plan of
Yeah,
attack.
so hopefully we'll get all this to come together this winter.
Okay, well, Susan's going to continue on with Bucky Fuller, and what's wrong? The title of this program is
World Game, which is also World Game. I know I mumbled, but which is also the name of his chapter 6 in the Critical Path book that we've been. Oh, are you changing pictures? Because
Yeah.
I'm going to hold it up.
Hold it. I won't hold it up then.
Because you're changing Critical Path by Buckminster.
I can get that a little closer.
I can too,
Oh, if you,
but I have to use it. So,
yeah, well,
okay. Because
Critical Path,
I can't
and that's
quote
the-
without reading what he said. I don't have
and that's the
things
book we're
memorized.
reading from. And we're going to try to bring Bucky back. We're going to resurrect Bucky one of these Sundays. We'll resurrect him from the grave, and
Well,
you'll be talking to him.
he's resting right now.
But right now,
Resting in peace.
right now we have a skeleton in our closet. So.
Well, yeah, and actually another thing about the boat, which we forgot to mention, we're going to call it Trim Tab. And we've just already defined before on other programs what Buckminster Fuller meant by Trim Tab.
Do you remember what a trim tab is, Dennis?
I do not remember trim tab. I did look on the screen and I saw the book that Susan was holding
yeah.
up, but I don't remember trim tab.
Well, would you
Do you
want
wanna define it, Jeff?
You just, I'm gonna get a cup of coffee. You just.
Okay, well, I'm just going to go quickly. He actually, I think he named one of his boats Trim Tab also. He was a sailor, and sailors, this kind of a term is something they know, right off, because the rudder of a boat has a smaller little rudder that starts the momentum from the steering in the direction that the pilot is indicating, with his wheel of the boat, or with a hand maneuvered rudder. You can do that too. There are different ways to manipulate the rudder, but it isn't just on a lot of boats. It isn't just the blade of the rudder. There's another smaller trim tab, part of that rudder, that starts the momentum, and it's very, very small, but it has a huge impact because it can move the whole boat and start that movement in a direction that is what's indicated, of course, by the pilot. And a pilot is an individual, and each individual has power and can control their own direction or their intellectual conclusions. You can extend this metaphor of the trim tab to what you feel your impact can be in the world. And most people, they will say today that they feel that they're at the mercy of lots of different trends or
95%
powers or whatever.
1% is.
Right, and generalized conclusions like what Jeff is just talking about. But according to Bucky, and I agree with this, we do have an impact as individuals, and just the physical nature of a trim tab, which is just a small little motion of the rudder before the larger rudder takes on the impetus of the pilot, the direction the pilot wants the boat to go. Just that little bit of movement can be determining.
Direction of the boat,
of a very
or the
large
plane. And you can check this out.
boat,
Well,
any size boat. But
next time you're driving in a car, if someone else is driving, which is be sort of fun, you put your hand out the window and go straight into the wind, like that, and then slowly bring up one finger.
That finger will
And
lift
that finger
your
will
whole
start
arm.
bringing the whole, and then the next finger. Before you know it, you're going. Your whole hand is up in a different direction.
Right. So it's just the little leading edge, the little motion of a leading edge or a trim tab is very, very powerful. So we're saying, in a sense, that we're all potential trim tabs, and along those same lines, that's another commonality amongst us all, that we do have in our individual lives. This kind of possibility, this, as far as what effect we can have within our community, our families, our
Because we all want to make
our nation,
we want to make a better life for everybody,
our world,
not just a few.
Yeah,
and that's why we're doing this.
And that's what the name of this chapter is: World Game, and it's chapter 6, as I said. And I believe it's one of the chapters. It's one chapter in this book that brings together a lot of his life concepts, of Buckminster Fuller's life concepts. And I quoted entirely for the summary from his book, and I'll read it because I didn't read it to Jeff last night, and so he didn't know what I'd done for our summary today. And Dennis, of course, you've read it probably from the computer, but anyway.
Anytime you want me to read it, I have it right in front of me too.
I'll just read it, and then if you want to quote from it or read anything in particular that interested you, you can go ahead and do that.
Thank you.
Let's see. So this is Buckminster Fuller speaking from his life experience, from his conclusions. As Bonnie would say, he's come to some conclusions, but I find that conclusions are never really conclusions. They are always leading to something else. And when we talk about the H-rim, it's not a conclusion, it's a starting point. It's a road, it's a new path that people can take. We can't see where it's going, but as people move along it, they will see, and make adjustments along the way. But let me do the quote first before you, okay, can you hold that thought? Quote, from the comprehensively informed world game viewpoint, those who have learned how to make money with money have now completely severed money from its constant functional identity with real wealth. With their game of making money with money, the money makers and their economists continue to exploit the general political and religious world's assumptions that a fundamental inadequacy of human life support exists around our planet. Now, there's a couple of unquote, and when he says that this making money with money has severed the identity of money with real wealth, he means, when he talks about real wealth, he means human capacity, human capability,
physical stuff,
human creations, things that we actually can touch and feel and participate in. later in the next page, he says, wealth is, quote, the already organized human capability and know-how to employ the fixed, inanimate planetary assets and omnicosmical, operative, and only celestial emanating natural energy income in such a manner as to cope with so many forward days of so many human lives, providing for their protection, 2, comfort, 3, nurturing, and the accommodation of the ongoing development by humans of their as yet untapped store of intellectual and aesthetic faculties, while continually eliminating restraints, and 6, increasing the range and depth of their information accumulating experience. So he was gathering with these points 1 through 6 what he felt were identifying what it meant to be human and what we need to be human. And he feels that by identifying this, what helps us thrive, what helps us survive, what makes it possible for us to survive and thrive, this is the wealth that he's defining.
It's physical wealth. It's not, we can't, I look at people who buy stuff and they buy it and they think, well, that's going to do the project. Like if they go ahead and they want to, let's say, paint the house. So they buy the paint and the house sits there and the paint sits there for 10 years. And they haven't every intention of doing it. And just because they bought it, they figure it's going to happen. Or they think they can do it. So I'm going to get to that tomorrow or the next day. Well, that next day never comes about because they're not physically doing anything. And that's the problem with money. You can say, oh, I'm making money. I'm doing so much good because I'm making money. But the reality is you're not doing anything.
No, you're not creating anything.
You're working with other people who are doing nothing.
Essentially, and you talked about this, the making of money on money is actually creating inflation.
Right.
And it's creating a situation where it's reducing the
value of the human being.
Right, the value of the human being, and of course then the value of real wealth on this planet, which if you want to first just saying that it's human, but it's also our natural resources that sustain us. We're reducing the value of those because we're in a very cavalier way using them and abusing the atmosphere and abusing the natural resources themselves and the people that depend on them wherever they exist. These people are pushed aside. We're seeing this happening again in Burundi and Rwanda. 20 years later, after the horrendous genocide there, it's starting to surface again. There's no accident about this. There's intense competition now for natural resources in Central, Western, and Africa. In Central Africa is rich, is with unexplored natural resources. China's in there, U.S. is in there, Europe is in there again. They never left. Imperialism is alive and well. And it just goes by another name now. It goes by democratization. It goes by open markets. It goes by the name of free markets. It goes by freedom is even a word.
When you hear the word,
and these things are not. These words are being co-opted. They're being destroyed. Their meanings are being destroyed because the people who use them, in a cynical manner to forward their exploits and become even more wealthy, they are doing this because they know that people relate to these words still, and they say, okay, this is a word that we can get this whole population to get behind. Let's use that word to mean, what we want.
They're manipulating the population with vocabulary.
Right.
And vocabulary is very important. That's why we need the HREM.
Meanings of the words are so very important.
And like the word absolutely, that's a very strong word. And it means absolutely. It doesn't mean maybe absolutely. It doesn't mean sometimes absolutely. It means it's a very strong word, and or no problem. Well, if you're doing something that is natural, of course there's no problem. I mean,
there's always problems.
But
I mean, you can never have a situation where there's no problem.
Well, in most cases, on the average, like getting a glass of water, or no problem unless there's a problem with it physically.
Well, what are you getting at with that?
Well, it's the way people are changing words around.
Okay.
It's the semantics of the word. And I know Dennis likes to use the word. We all love democracy. Well, they have a guy on Zeitgeist Moving Forward, and he says that there's syntax in these words. Now,
context.
No, syntax. He said it's a syntax of the word.
Okay.
He says, so you should be alert when you hear the word, a bell should go off that something's wrong when you hear the word democracy or freedom. It's normally used together.
You should see what they're using it in relation to.
But they don't mean democracy or freedom. They don't mean that, because nowadays, Dennis, you use the word democracy, and we all love our freedom. Well, what freedom do we have if we're slaves to the system? So this guy was saying, I forgot the fellow's name. I think he was a writer or a columnist. But and I also listened to, there's a fellow behind me who plays these radio, this AM stuff that's comes out. That's very much what do they call that? Conspiracy stuff. On AM, and they, like Obama's
well, he plays his radio so loud that he's having the whole neighborhood
forced to listen to it.
But that's changed recently, because I think people complained, but he still tries to broadcast his point of view this way.
But what I was trying to say, well, that's a nice. He's strong on his belief system about what he's listening to,
speech, right?
And I think that's okay. However, I don't. He's not giving, and I have no problem with someone using their own mind, but he's listening to one pontiff, one person's ideas, and he's broadcasting their ideas, like our president to be Donald Trump, or our president to be Bernie Sanders, but they have their own ideas on how they should do things, or Hillary Clinton, or whoever else is running.
They all have a point of view, right?
And they all have everybody's entitled to their own stupid point of view, including myself. However, you have to be able to use your mind. And the way I'm looking at it, and the way there's few of us who got together and said, listen, there's something wrong with our system. And Dennis says the same thing, right, Dennis? There's something radically wrong with the way we're doing business today, right?
Yes, I really think there's something dysfunctional that needs to be reformed.
And we agree to that. But what I'm suggesting to you is that you can't reform something. You can't change something if the person you want to have the change take effect is going to do that. And our economy is controlling our.
Wait, I lost you. What are you
In
talking
other
about?
words, you can't ask someone to reform their behavior if those are the people who are actually behaving the way that you
mean if they're benefiting so much from the way things are, they're never going to change.
They're not. If I said Dennis,
that's what he's saying here. These are the people making money on money. That's
right.
what Buckminster Fuller is saying. These are the people who have learned how to, quote, make money with money, and that way they're divorcing money from its identity with real wealth.
Right.
And then we're coming back to, Buckminster Fuller's desire, his overall desire to, create a viable future for all people, not just people who know how to manipulate money. And by manipulating money, they are decreasing the value of things that have real value and they're also causing inflation,
Right.
which is making it
But-
less and less possible. And what that means is your dollar is worth less. You can buy less with it. You are then stressed economically if you are on the edge as it is and trying to meet your bills month to month or week to week. Then many people are in this position, and their money runs out before they get their next paycheck, and they have families to feed. They have bills to pay, and these things, the money is less valuable because there are people making money on money and causing the value of money to go down. And you explain this much better than I do. And,
Okay.
and if you would explain
okay.
that so that everybody could understand it.
Right now, if I make money on money, the money doesn't physically do anything other than put theoretically someone to work. But if I continue to make money without putting anything physical back into the system, so my money just increases in value, I've created a huge inflationary system. However,
How do you do that? You got to go into a little more detail.
Okay, in
about
other
that.
words, I go ahead and say, I've got a pot of money here,
Right.
and I'm going to hire you I'm going to take my money, and I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm just going to hire someone. You're going to work for me. If you're starving, you need some money, I'm going to give you a teeny bit of my money so you can do something physical for me. And then you take that money, you put it in the bank, and someone else makes money on that. They gambled with it and they made some money on it. Well, that dollar they made a lot of money, but the little guy who's working the job, trying to survive, he doesn't make any money, but my money is worth a lot more because it's inflated. I just inflated, I made it more. So he's got to work for harder because his money is worth less because I'm sucking the money and I'm not giving him a part of it. So I'm creating inflation because I'm not putting anything back into the system.
You're hoarding the money.
I'm hoarding my money and I'm using bits of it and I'm making people work harder and taking their natural resources.
Right. On top of that, you're using up the natural resources. So the extra value of technology, which is what Buckminster Fuller felt that technology, would ultimately make, the future for all people excellent. He, not perfect, but excellent. That's why he concentrated on building what he called artifacts, like the geodesic dome, various things you can look into see all the different patents he had, hundreds and hundreds of patents for things that he invented. And
A one-piece bathroom.
Right, exactly.
He had a car that held
see
20
them in the
people
Home
that did
Depot now.
25 miles an hour.
Right.
A gallon, rather. I mean, he did just
it was
great stuff, or 40 miles a gallon.
But anyway, he felt that technology, which is our common inheritance, would take us all as a human species into the future in an excellent way.
By the way,
But the trouble is that people are controlling not only the money, they're controlling the technology, so that the extra value of this technology, where it's giving people more free time and more opportunity to be creative and create more great technology, this is not going to the general population. It's only going to a very, very small percentage.
They're taking the new wealth. A friend of mine coined this phrase, new wealth industry.
They're taking that.
And the new wealth
And
industry should be going to all humanity because you're building it on other people's knowledge.
Right.
But
and a lot of people would, say, oh, no way, there are people that what about Einstein? What about, they're geniuses and they deserve to have everything, they should deserve to.
But you couldn't pay those people.
Well, I mean, the point that many people try to make when you say that we're building on human knowledge through the whole existence of our species, they will say, no, they're exceptional people that didn't need anything to come before their particular inventions. And this is if you really look carefully, you know that this cannot be the case. We all learn from each other.
Even Einstein
And
built on other people.
right, exactly.
Even Louis Pasteur, everybody who's a genius builds on other people's knowledge.
They have leaps of possibility in their minds.
Just like gravity.
And we all have that potential. As I said, we all can be, we all are trim tabs. It's a question of how, if we're going to activate that particular human quality of being able to leap intellectually to another level of understanding, another invention. We all have that human quality, that potential, that kind of trim tab, and that's the physical representation of what I'm trying to express.
Another person, and I love his, and I'm sorry I don't remember the names of these quotes. I remember, but one of the quotes he brought out was very simply, he said, the object of labor is to gain leisure. That's a very important thing, but your leisure time doesn't mean you go out and play golf every day. It means you have the ability to think. Like if I'm really busy and I'm doing 10 things at once, whether I'm being paid to do it or I choose to do it, it's very hard for me to think clearly because I'm doing too many things at once.
Right.
When I have a few things that I'm doing, I can think clearer. I can devote more time to this program when I haven't got 10 items to work. I can devote more time to my friends and get their opinions on things like I do with Dennis and other people that I know.
Right, you'll call them up and you'll have a
and we have a conversation. I have more free time.
Right, and start to assimilate all these different impressions.
And they tell us what they think, and I bring it on our programming. And a lot of people are afraid to do programming. So
well, because we have this atmosphere of fear right now, and that's being encouraged. Even the candidates that are running for office, they're like, oh yeah, we should be afraid. What are we going to do about it? And they go to that direction. And when people are afraid or fear for their physical safety or the safety of their families, even though it's based on tragedies, that are real, but are really, considering the population of the earth, rather infrequent. I mean, can I make that point? I mean, or is that really
no, it's a good point.
out of this?
It's also
because
there's 2 points to this. First of all,
most people,
if you're the one affected by it, it's very real.
of course.
But the reality is that most people aren't affected by it, and it's normally created by another human being or a group of other human beings to drop bombs on people, and then they drop bombs back on us, or they attack us, or you put them in poverty so they rob you. I mean, this is
we're saying that the biggest oppression at this point in our history is the oppression caused by economics, and if we can clear our minds, as Jeff is saying, from the fear propaganda, and think clearly about what we're all participating in, and all around the world, and what kind of impacts it's having in places like Syria and Central Africa and anywhere Syria, where there,
Golden Heights,
right,
people,
exactly.
It's out of the news now. What's happening
India,
right in our
so
own country? What's happening
in our own country? Yes.
Look if you're in New York State, look in the poverty areas of New York State.
If you
in Washington D.C., check that out.
If you are able to trace mentally where the source of this kind of stress is really coming from, I believe that you will find that a lot of it is from economic activity.
Well, look at the stress people go through. It's around Christmas time. Look at the stress people go through around this time of the year. How many of you are out there around Christmas time? Well, you got to go shopping and wrap the presents and figure out who's going where for the holidays. My God, there's something wrong with this stuff. It's not just it's dysfunctional, it's we're part of the dysfunctionality because we're wrapped up in the economy of these things. That's the problem.
We're born into it, and it's very, very hard
to understand it.
To take your mind to a place where you can examine what your situation is, and the only reason that we're able now for a space of time to do it is because that we have a little bit of stability as far as our economics. We can live on very little. And we are using the free time that gives us to do programming, to think about this concept.
To help people think about a possible solution. And by the way, I want to bring this solution out because I was told several programs ago that we're not giving you solutions, we're giving all the problems. Mm-hmm. The solution is pretty simple, and it's so simple you're going to tell me it can't be done. If we all agree, like we agree upon a color of white or black, Dennis, if I ask you, do you know what color black is? Can you tell me that you understand what the color black is or the absence of color?
Yes.
And if I say red, you know what that looks like?
Yes.
And you have different ideas of what the shade of red would be, but it's still, we all agree red is red, green is green, white is white, black is black. Blue is blue. We all understand colors. It may be in different languages, but we all understand. We all agree what the colors are, right?
Yes. As a matter of fact, if you don't know what red looks like, you're going to go right through that light and you might hit another car.
Well, but there are different shades of but there are different
point.
Shades of red, though, right?
Oh, yes. Right.
Okay, so that's subjective. But the actual red that we all agree upon is pretty precise. So we all agree. Now, I'm telling you very simply that we feel we found an answer to the economic problem. But we have to all agree upon it. We all have to agree that every human being uses, and then scientifically uses, 1 million calories or energy units of some type of food. And we all need that. We all need a certain energy number of water, which is, you can say, 1 million calories of water a year. We all need shelter, and we can measure that in energy units depending upon where you live. Minimals amount, not maximums or not wants, but minimum that we all agree upon. And we all agree that there's enough technology out there that no human being should have to work more than about an hour a day for their minimum needs. And that's what the HREM is about. It's an agreement, a start point, that all humanity has to have their basic needs met for about 1 hour of their life a day's work. And then if they want more, they have 23 more hours to decide how they want to distribute that in their own life to have their wants met. But their needs are always met. And that will stop the wars in Syria, Africa, around the world. It may take a few generations because there's some emotions in there because we killed people. But after a few generations of having all basic needs met, that may stop the wars. Now, we're not saying we're right about the measurement. We think we have a solution. And if you can try to understand that solution and get it out there on all you got to do is just use whatever means you have to describe it. Like if you go to a church group or a bar or internet or whatever you could do to get that message out, that's great. Don't sign nothing. Don't give a social security number. We don't want your donations. Please just get the message out. The human renewable energy measure. And that's, we think, may be the answer to the religious wars we're having, to the insanities of what's going on in this world now. So please try to get that out. And I every time I ask people if they understand it, I really try to ask Dennis. Dennis, did I make that clear enough?
Well, yes, to Dennis, you made it very clear, yes.
Well, how do you think someone who never heard it before would understand what I said?
Well, they have to go online. It's very easy. If you go on the internet and you look at that, and it says for that very small amount of work, you get your food, shelter, and education, no matter what age you are. I think it's very important. In this country, we've started doing that. No matter, even if the parents are unemployed, that child gets free grade school and free high school right now. What's sad is when the child turns 18 years old, then it becomes not free. It is so expensive. That's why we never have to ask where our troops come from when we send them over to Afghanistan.
I want to interrupt you a minute. Before we had colleges, was it very expensive to teach people?
Well, before we had colleges, I would say yes. It was always more expensive. Now it is so inexpensive.
Whoa! Before colleges, how did people pay for learning?
Well, how did they learn?
How did they learn? How did a professor get a professorship if there was no college?
I think they were like apprentices.
Wait.
That's what I'm saying. With today's technology, you can do 95% of your education on the internet.
No, but before, there's a question I have here. Now we have colleges, and it's very expensive to have colleges, and I agree with you. We could do most of the learning on the internet and take the test somewhere else, no problem. But what did we do before there was a college? I mean, all of a sudden, man came, they became, we had, they had the economy, and then they had kings. Who started the first college, and how did you get professors being professors at the first college?
I have a funny answer to that.
Which came first, the chicken or the egg?
The Wizard of Oz.
Was it the Wizard of Oz who started the colleges, or what?
He did. He made a degree for the.
So there was a phony degree made, and people had phony degrees.
Right?
The people had the phony degrees. They built the colleges. So why is colleges so expensive?
I know why. It's an easy answer. Because when you're 18 years old, that's when we can get these kids to go over there, over to the military, whether it's the Army or the Navy or the Air Force, it doesn't matter.
So you're saying they made the colleges more expensive when they eliminated the draft, so they had to get people to sign up to get an education.
And they forced them through economics.
So they can get more money to get a job, so they make them go to the school to be soldiers for the very wealthy people to take the natural resources. Does that make sense?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay, let's keep on. See what Bucky says.
I'll read a little more from
Bucky.
From Buckminster Fuller, Bucky Fuller. He wants to, quote, produce a higher standard of living for all humanity than has ever heretofore been experienced or dreamed of by any, unquote. And he's saying, and in his opinion, quote, the success of all humanity can be accomplished only by a terrestrially comprehensive, technologically competent design revolution. This revolution must develop artifacts whose energy use efficiency not only occasions the artifact's spontaneous adoption by humanity, but therewith also occasions the inadvertent, unregretted abandonment and permanent obsolescence of socially and economically undesirable viewpoints, customs, and practices, unquote. So he sees with the evolution of technology, and it's happening. I mean, with our internet, with our technologies that we're using now commonly, we carry a phone around that has, you can ask any question of, if you have that kind of phone that has the whole internet on it, it's like you're carrying a genius in your pocket. And any question that occurs to you, you can get some kind of answer to that question if you direct it to your phone. Plus, you can communicate with anyone in the world. This kind of technology, he could see it coming when he died in the 80s, early 80s, but he didn't. He didn't see and was able to use what we're using now, the refinements that have come, but he could see that they were going to come. And he felt that, and he calls these things artifacts. These are the things that humans create and are sustained through generation after generation, because they are so useful and they're spontaneously adopted, as he says, by humanity. And by being adopted, they are transformed by our use. And each individual, uses the technology in their own way. And this way we're transforming it, each as individuals, each as trim tabs. And so he's saying, that the technology itself, the use of it, the evolution of it, the new technologies that we don't even know we will be using in the future, but they're coming. These will, if they're adopted spontaneously by humanity, and we all have our impact on them, he sees this as a way of actually that society will become, more inclusive, that we will become a world community that will not,
and we will all be wealthy, but
be
not
destroying
wealthy,
each
but not
other.
wealthy in the
Right.
form of currency or money or gold or silver in the bank, but free time, more time to enjoy life and to help other human beings.
and to think,
That's true wealth.
And
It doesn't
think
matter how
without-
much money you
and
have.
think without distraction, as you were expressing before. Our minds are going in so many directions. Generally, that's what modern life, you can't concentrate on anything too long. Something else is going to, be distracting you. The thing is, what he's saying is, yes, right now there are a fortunate few who are actually living what we would define as the HREM, because they don't have to be concerned about money. So the people, all the people that are running for president in this country are living a form of human renewable energy measure, but they're doing it at the expense of everyone else on the planet, because they're hoarding of billions. Because $1 billion is like pocket change to them, because that's what they're using. That's what they need to run for president.
And now
Yeah.
I want to put something in perspective.
So they've made that wad of $1 billion less valuable. They've made money less valuable for the rest of us by hoarding that wad and using it.
And you need
for
$1 billion in this country right now.
They're using it to promote themselves.
Now watch this. What's the purpose of running for office? What do you want to do? Well, and I'm not a Donald Trump fan, but he's actually broken the mold to the wrong side, in my opinion. But he's actually used his money to push himself into politics, buying the media. He literally buys the media. And the way someone with money does that is they when they have a conference, they take over an entire floor of a hotel room, a hotel suite. They pick their own suite out of the floor, and they have food in the lobby. They have food in the hallways. Every room has different kinds of food in it. They give the different groups their own offices, and they have a conference room. And then the media loves to have their food. They're all-you-can-eat buffets, Dennis, is what Donald Trump does. He sets up like an all-you-can-eat buffet and lots of drinks and fun for people. And they love to cover Donald Trump. And that's how he does it. He spends money doing that. Now, unfortunately, his message is really crapped up. I would love to have Bernie Sanders have the money that Donald Trump has. And I am a Bernie Sanders fan. I think that Bernie's sort of not quite on the money, but closest one out there. Bernie is great. But he doesn't have the measurement, the human renewable energy measure. And without that measurement, you don't know where you are, so you can't get to where you'd like to go. In other words, if I put you in a place, Dennis, that you don't know where you are, the first question you're going to ask somebody is, where am I? So I can get to where I want to be. But if you don't know, and that's the problem. in the economic world, we don't know where we are without the human renewable energy measurement in place. Does that make sense?
Well,
Yes.
and that has to be expressed within our economics, the way that we practice economics. The first thing that needs to be satisfied and for all humanity is food, shelter, and education. Education, probably, any order that you want.
Well,
to
education
put
is the
that in.
primary thing, because without education, you don't know what kind of foods to have, what kind of shelter to have, and you have to be educated enough to know you can work there 1 hour. That's the important
and
thing.
people will parse that, each of those categories, saying, well, what kind of food, what kind of education, okay, those are things that are all going to be part of what we converse as individuals about. What is the best way to educate? Those are things that we're always talking about anyway. We're all, the parsing and defining of what's nutritious has been going on. I mean, I remember my grandfather, being so careful about what he ate and grinding little seeds and putting them in his breakfast cereal. I mean, this has been going on forever. So we're still having those conversations. We're still going to have those conversations. But first of all, if you have no food at all, and that is the case with a lot of families, with a lot of people, they're just barely getting enough to live. First, you have to make sure that is not the case, that there is sufficient food available to sustain life for humans, and whether or not it's grown organically at first is not the issue. We need to transition to those things. We need to transition to less destructive energy producing sources, and this is all ongoing, and we feel it'll go a lot faster if the emphasis is on real wealth, which is sustaining people.
Education, food, and shelter for all human beings.
Those things are done through education, food, and shelter. A child can't think if they don't have breakfast. When they go to school, if they don't have, these things are basic.
Try not having dinner and breakfast. Don't have your breakfast. Don't have your lunch. Don't have your dinner for 4 or 5 days, and see how well you do. You'll find that you're going to have a big, big problem.
So this is what we're addressing, the very, very start point.
The start point.
And it's not addressed in our economics as we practice it today.
Right.
People are scrambling, and there's no reason for it, because the technology has made it possible for everyone.
So how many people like the HRM? The HRM is, and as one of our friends from Africa said to us, you've got to tell people that the HRM is a possible answer. We're not just giving you problems. The HRM is the answer, a measurement to go from where we are now
It's a new road.
Right.
It's a new road. It isn't a final thing. It's a new path that we can take as a human species.
Right.
And I'll read a little more, another quote from Bucky Fuller. He's talking about how most of our efforts, our efforts as economy slaves in this world, quote, about 90% of all U.S. employment is engaged in tasks producing no life support wealth. These non-life support producing employees are spending 3, 4, and more gallons of gasoline daily to go to their non-wealth producing jobs. Ergo, we are completely wasting $3 trillion of cosmic wealth per day in the U.S. He's converted human wealth to money.
Cosmic wealth.
Right, but he's also converting it to money,
right.
Which we don't do, because money has no determinable value,
right.
Because people are hoarding it and reducing and increasing and you know what the stock market does. In real energy time, know-how accounting of wealth and planet Earth's 4 billion billionaires have not yet been notified of their good fortune. Their heritage probating is being postponed by the lawyers for the now inherently obsolete power structures of all kinds, all of which exploitive systems are organized only to take biased advantage of all scarcities, physical and metaphysical. And I jumped into that. You have to read that several times, but
read it one more time. We have 3 minutes left.
well, let me go into another.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to go into something much more accessible here. Quote, evolution has now accelerated into revolution, which, if it goes bloody, will render all humanity extinct. But if it goes via the design revolution, all humanity will win. This is a new kind of revolution. It is one that, instead of revengefully pulling down the top fortunate few, will elevate all.
Right.
And heretofore,
that's the HREM.
Will elevate all the heretofore unfortunates and the fortunates alike to new and sustainable heights of realized life, far superior to those previously tenuously attained by the most privileged few. And that's the end of that quote. He says, this is not a them against us situation.
Right.
It is a situation where the economics has been played, by some very, a handful of people, because they play it well and they understood how to play it. They didn't think of it as a democracy. They didn't think of it as a fair, free market. They knew it wasn't a free market. They knew it wasn't a democracy. They knew it didn't mean freedom. They knew that if they played it in a certain way, they could then pull all the extra value of technology to themselves. And this is, this is also a human quality. They want to protect their life. They want to protect their families. They want to protect, it is an accelerated version, and maybe you could say one that's gone amok of a human quality of preservation, self-preservation, and probably only self-preservation, because ultimately that can be a very destructive tendency if you're trying to hand that on to your family, because they have a very distorted view then, the children, of what the full picture is. They never really understand or get the full picture. So then they continue in the same, in a less effective way than their patriarch who set them up. So, these are things to consider. We're on a verge of, as Buckminster Fuller said, some kind of revolution. You don't want a revolution to be violent or bloody or create fear, which is what always has the potential of doing, because we see that in history. This has to be a revolution that creates abundance for everyone. And we feel that the way to get to it is through our economics.
Your neighbors are poor because they close the factory. Try to stretch your paycheck, it's never quite enough. So energy.
Well, thank you for listening to another hour on Sunday at a Front Stoop.
Wonder where the money's gone.
Listen to next Wednesday.
It all comes down to energy.
Dennis, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis.
Susan, thank you all for listening. We'll see you as soon
Cars
as we
and farms and factories and
promote the HREM.org, please.
so our futures are at
Renew the
stake.
earth.
And when it's gone, it won't come back.
Again,
We'll be out of luck.
Energy.
Energy.
So we want to see many people talk about Maine
It all comes down to
as
energy.
possible.
You wonder where the money's gone. Here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy. We can get our energy from corn and grass and trees. Even trash converts to biofuels. Break loose from the stranglehold of oil companies. Renewables can fuel the world. We're here to spread the news of energy. energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone? Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy.